"You don't deserve that money, Kayla. You're barely even family." Those words hit me like a slap, sharp and cold, delivered in Mom's perfectly calm voice, a tone so chillingly sweet you'd almost miss the cruelty hidden beneath. My fingers shook, clutching the phone tighter as anger burned its way up my throat. My name is Kayla, and this was supposed to be my inheritance, the only real acknowledgement I'd ever gotten from anyone besides Grandpa. But standing alone in my cramped apartment, I suddenly felt like I was 12 years old again, invisible and unwanted. Sitting silently through family dinners while everyone praised Marcus for his law degree and Jenna for her big corporate job. And now, with Grandpa barely cold in the ground, Mom was already tearing away the only genuine thing I'd ever been given. A gift that wasn't just money, it was proof that someone finally saw my worth. Saw me beyond the quiet, overlooked daughter I'd always been. "I didn't ask Grandpa for anything," I shot back, trying to steady my voice, though my heartbeat drummed wildly in my ears. "He chose me." She laughed dismissively, the sound dripping with disdain. "Kayla, sweetie, you draw pictures for a living. You think your grandfather really wanted his life savings wasted on your hobbies?" Hobbies. That's what she called my work, as if I hadn't scraped and clawed my way from nothing, working long hours and sleepless nights to build a stable freelance career. Every bit of self-respect I'd painstakingly earned was crumbling under her cutting words, making me feel small again, insignificant, like a child being lectured on responsibility. But deep down beneath that familiar pain, anger simmered, hot, fierce, and determined. Grandpa had seen something in me. His thrift store cardigan, patched and faded, flashed into my mind. He'd worn it proudly, ignoring every subtle sneer Mom threw his way. He never cared what they thought. He'd made his fortune quietly, modestly, entirely on his own terms, just like me. Grandpa's inheritance wasn't a whim, it was his silent message, a final, powerful nod of approval. It felt like he'd passed me the baton, trusting me not to crumble beneath the weight of family judgment. Now I realized clearly, my battle wasn't just about money, it was about dignity, respect, and finally standing up to generations of emotional manipulation. "I earned his trust," I told her firmly, finding strength I didn't know I had. "And I won't let you or anyone else take that from me." There was a heavy pause, Mom's icy silence crackling through the phone. I could practically feel her calculating her next move, strategizing how to corner me into submission. This wasn't the end, it was only the beginning. I knew Mom and my siblings wouldn't stop until they'd pried every cent from my grasp and shoved me back into the quiet corner they'd always kept me in. But for the first time in my life, I was ready to fight, no matter how ugly things got. Because the truth was, they had no idea what I'd become capable of to protect what Grandpa entrusted me. Before I share the rest of this story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit like and subscribe if you've ever overcome something for your family. Trust me, you have no idea what they'll do once they find out the truth. Looking back, I realized my invisibility didn't start with Grandpa's inheritance. It had been there my entire life. You know that feeling when you're at a party, standing right there, but somehow people just look straight through you? Imagine living like that every day, but instead of strangers, it's your own family. I remember the first time it really hit me at Marcus's graduation. Mom threw a huge party at a fancy restaurant downtown. Everyone wore suits and dresses, champagne flowing freely as if Marcus had single-handedly cured a disease instead of finishing law school. Jenna stood near Mom, smiling effortlessly in her designer dress. My siblings had always been the stars, gleaming brightly enough to make everyone else look dull by comparison. And there I was, holding a simple card I'd drawn myself, hours spent crafting every line, every shading, a portrait of Marcus in his graduation cap, something personal, meaningful. I hesitated at the edge of the crowd, heart fluttering nervously. Finally, I stepped forward and handed it to Marcus. He glanced at it briefly. "Oh, cool. Thanks, Kayla." Then he tossed it aside without a second look, grabbing another champagne flute from a passing tray. Mom gave me a tight smile, whispering quietly, "Honey, thoughtful, but maybe next time buy something nice." That stung. She didn't understand that buying something nice wasn't what I wanted. I wanted them to notice that I'd poured myself into it, that there was something valuable in my passion, my effort, in just being me. But they saw value only in the glittering surface, never the quiet depths beneath. Grandpa found me that night hiding in a corner booth, doodling mindlessly on a napkin. He slid in quietly beside me, the faint scent of peppermint always clinging to his worn cardigan. "They don't always see what matters, do they?" he murmured, nudging my shoulder softly. I sighed, blinking back tears. "It's just a dumb drawing, Grandpa. Maybe they're right." He shook his head slowly, his blue eyes warm, full of gentle understanding. "Your family measures success in dollars and fancy titles, Kayla, but one day they'll realize those things never last. Keep drawing your pictures. One day they'll tell the story everyone else ignored." I clung to his words, repeating them quietly, holding on to them for years afterward. They became my anchor, a quiet defiance against a family that never bothered to look deeper. As years passed, Mom and my siblings perfected the art of ignoring me. My first significant freelance job came with a big client, branding for a trendy cafe downtown. I'd been ecstatic, my first taste of real validation. But Mom's response still echoes in my mind clearly. "Cute, honey, but when will you get a stable job?" Jenna chuckled softly, patting my shoulder with condescending sympathy. Marcus didn't even bother to comment, just a brief, distracted nod, eyes glued to his phone. It hurt more than I admitted, that constant dismissal, the casual cruelty wrapped in polite smiles. But each small humiliation hardened something inside me. Quietly, almost secretly. Grandpa was right. I had to measure myself differently, in ways they never would. Eventually I learned to stop sharing. I built walls around my life, quietly nurturing my skills, each small success carefully hidden. Slowly, steadily, without fanfare or applause, I built a thriving career in silence. Grandpa was the only one who ever really noticed, and he smiled proudly every time we spoke, always encouraging, always believing. Now, with Grandpa gone, Mom suddenly cared. Because now there was money involved, money she believed I didn't deserve. She wanted control, as if somehow that inheritance belonged to her, to Marcus, to Jenna, just because they'd been louder, shinier, more socially acceptable all those years. But my quiet years of invisibility taught me something important. Strength doesn't always shout. Sometimes it's silent, patient, and powerful. The stakes felt terrifyingly high. They weren't just after the money, they were trying to erase Grandpa's validation of me, to push me back into that invisible corner. But this time, I wouldn't fade quietly. My big turning point, the one nobody saw coming, started with a simple email. It landed in my inbox late on a Tuesday evening, long after my coffee had gone cold and my eyes were burning from staring at the screen. But the moment I read the sender's name, my heart jumped into my throat. The email was from a prestigious marketing firm I'd pitched weeks ago, half convinced I'd never hear back. But there it was, glowing at me through the screen, an offer that felt unreal. They wanted me, Kayla, the overlooked artist my family laughed off, to lead a major branding campaign for a fast-growing startup. The money was impressive, but even better, the recognition felt like pure oxygen. I leaped from my chair, dancing around my tiny living room, laughing uncontrollably, tears of relief streaming down my face. This wasn't just a job, it was vindication. Every dismissive glance, every condescending word, every painful family dinner flashed vividly in my mind, turning into fuel. My first instinct was to call Grandpa. My hand reached automatically for the phone before my heart dropped, remembering he was gone. The ache hit me, sharp and deep, but underneath it bloomed a fierce determination. I would make Grandpa proud, finally proving him right for believing in me when nobody else had. For months, I worked tirelessly, giving my all to the campaign. Late nights turned into early mornings. I barely slept, surviving on cold coffee, adrenaline, and sheer determination. Every successful milestone felt like a personal victory, proof of my strength, evidence that I deserved every cent Grandpa left me. But despite my growing success, I kept quiet, partly because it felt fragile, easily destroyed by the judgmental whispers of my family. Mostly, though, because I knew the moment Mom found out, she would turn my hard-won achievement into another weapon. Yet, hidden beneath the secrecy, something unexpected was taking shape: confidence. Real, unwavering self-belief, the kind I'd never known existed inside me. Meanwhile, the family drama escalated. Mom began texting frequently, her messages growing increasingly manipulative. Marcus and Jenna joined the chorus, hinting at upcoming events, dropping subtle guilt about missing birthdays, conveniently forgetting they'd barely acknowledged mine for years. Then came Grandpa's will. Suddenly everything shifted. The family lawyer read the words aloud in a solemn office downtown. The silence afterward was deafening, heavy with shock. Mom was furious, masking her rage beneath forced smiles and clipped sentences. Marcus looked stunned, speechless for the first time in his perfectly articulate life. Jenna visibly paled, exchanging anxious glances with Mom. I sat quietly, heart racing, feeling oddly calm beneath their scrutiny. Grandpa's decision wasn't just a surprise, it was an outright declaration that shook the family foundations. Later, alone in my car, I finally let the tears flow. It wasn't about the money, not really. It was the overwhelming gratitude that Grandpa believed in me, truly believed. He'd given me the greatest gift anyone ever could: validation, trust, dignity. But Mom wouldn't let me enjoy that moment long. Her first call afterward made her intentions crystal clear. She accused me of manipulating Grandpa in his final days. The words pierced deep, twisting painfully. I almost started to doubt myself until I remembered Grandpa's steady eyes, his calm voice reassuring me I had nothing to prove anymore. "I didn't manipulate anyone," I replied, voice shaking but determined. "Grandpa saw me clearly. Maybe the only one who ever has." She went quiet, cold anger vibrating down the line. "Kayla, don't make this difficult. We're family, don't ever forget that." Family. The word echoed painfully, filled with hidden threats and emotional traps. My heart hardened. "Maybe you should remember that first," I answered softly, feeling a new steely strength settle in my chest. The line went dead. Sitting alone, I felt a surprising clarity. This was the battle Grandpa had seen coming. A fight that would determine the rest of my life. But this time, I was prepared. Stronger than they could ever imagine. My secret success was no longer a fragile thing, easily broken. It was armor, solid and protective. And they had no idea what I'd become capable of. The invitation arrived, ironically elegant and perfectly timed, like a carefully laid trap. Mom always had a flair for making even family dinners feel like prestigious events. She called it a family gathering. But I knew better. It was a summons. My stomach twisted anxiously just looking at it. The familiar script on expensive cardstocks screamed obligation, and the weight of expectation nearly crushed me. I almost tossed it aside, the instinctive urge to avoid confrontation overwhelming. But Grandpa's quiet voice echoed firmly in my mind. "Face them, Kayla. Stand firm even when it's hardest." With a heavy sigh, I texted Mom that I'd be there. I could practically hear her smug satisfaction, imagining her already strategizing my humiliation. I felt like a gladiator preparing for the arena, only my opponent was my own family, armed with weapons sharpened by years of emotional manipulation. The day of the dinner felt surreal. I stood staring at my reflection, debating outfits, painfully aware of every potential criticism. Too casual meant disrespect, too dressed up meant trying too hard. Mom's voice echoed cruelly in my ears, dissecting every choice. Eventually, I settled on a simple dress, something modest yet professional, quietly defiant in its simplicity. Grandpa would have approved. Driving to Mom's upscale neighborhood, anxiety churned in my gut. Rows of perfectly manicured lawns flashed past, each pristine facade masking unknown family dramas inside. It felt ironic, fitting somehow, to return to this stage of endless comparison and quiet cruelty. When I parked, my pulse quickened. Marcus's shiny new BMW was already in the driveway, Jenna's sleek SUV right behind. Even their cars seemed to mock my modest sedan. I swallowed hard, bracing myself. Walking to the door, memories rushed back, the tight smiles, the whispers behind my back. Each step felt heavier than the last, but beneath the dread burned a quiet ember of defiance. I wouldn't let them break me, not this time. Mom opened the door, immaculate as always. "Kayla, so glad you decided to join us," she said, her voice sugar-coated with thinly veiled judgment. I forced a polite smile. "Thanks, Mom." Inside, Marcus lounged on the sofa, casually sipping wine. Jenna hovered near Mom, exchanging knowing glances. I felt instantly isolated, an intruder in my own family. Dinner began predictably, tension dripping from every polite question. Marcus went first. "Still freelancing, Kayla?" he asked casually, but his eyes glittered sharply. "Must be tough, not having any real stability." Mom nodded, a practiced expression of maternal concern. "Honey, you really should think long-term. Marcus can help you find a stable office job if you're finally ready. I forced calm into my voice, pushing down my anger. I appreciate your concern, but I'm happy with my work. Jenna smiled thinly, eyes sparkling maliciously. Still, Grandpa's money would make freelancing a lot more comfortable, wouldn't it? The accusation hung heavy in the air. I clenched my fork tightly, knuckles white, forcing myself not to explode. Grandpa trusted me to handle it, I said evenly. Marcus chuckled, shaking his head as though amused by a naive child. Sure, but it's family money, Kayla. Honestly, you don't seem prepared to manage something this important. Their words stabbed deep, striking familiar wounds. Doubt crept up, whispering insidiously that maybe they were right. But then I remembered Grandpa's face, gentle and firm, telling me clearly, "You are stronger than their words, Kayla, believe that." Taking a deep breath, I steadied myself, calmly meeting Marcus's gaze. Grandpa believed I was. Mom's smile faltered slightly, her eyes flickering with barely hidden irritation. Kayla, it's not about belief, it's about reality. Marcus and Jenna are clearly more responsible choices, it's about what's best for the family. The phrase felt like a knife, twisting sharply. The family, as if I'd ever been considered part of that elite inner circle before Grandpa's money. My heart hammered, decision crystallizing within me. Tonight wasn't just dinner, it was Judgment Day. Mom had arranged it carefully, fully expecting me to crumble. But I wouldn't. Instead, I leaned forward slightly, my voice steady, stronger than I'd ever heard it before. Maybe what's best for the family is finally admitting that I deserve this, Mom. Grandpa did. The silence stretched painfully, tension crackling in the air. Mom's face tightened, controlled fury radiating beneath her polished exterior. Marcus's smile faded into cold hostility. Jenna looked stunned, clearly unprepared for my newfound defiance. They had expected weakness, but found steel. This was the eve of battle, and I was finally ready to fight. From the moment I sat down at that dinner table, I knew I was stepping into a carefully constructed trap. The gleaming china plates, perfectly arranged silverware, and overly formal candles, it was all a performance, a backdrop to highlight my inadequacies. Every detail was designed to put me firmly in my place. Marcus started first, sliding into the conversation smoothly, confident as always. "So Kayla," he drawled, swirling his wine casually, "tell us more about this big project you've been so secretive about." His tone dripped with mock interest, baiting me. Mom raised an eyebrow, skepticism already settled comfortably on her face. "It's a branding campaign for a promising startup," I said, choosing my words carefully, determined not to give them ammunition. "They liked my work, trusted my vision." Mom laughed softly, one of her perfectly crafted, weaponized chuckles. "Trusted your vision? Kayla, sweetie, don't you think you're overstating things just a bit?" Heat rose in my cheeks. Jenna leaned forward slightly, eyes glittering with barely concealed amusement. "Oh, come on, Mom, let's give Kayla credit. At least it's something, better than just doodling in notebooks all day, right?" They laughed lightly, their casual cruelty feeling razor-sharp. My fists tightened beneath the tablecloth, nails digging painfully into my palms, grounding me. Grandpa's voice filled my thoughts, calm and steady. "Never let their words shake your truth." I forced my voice steady, looking directly at Jenna. "Actually, Jenna, it's more than just something. It's successful enough that the client offered me another contract. My work speaks for itself." For a second Jenna's smile faltered, but Marcus quickly jumped in. "Really?" he said, mock surprise etched across his face. "Then why all the secrecy? Afraid it might not pan out, or worried Mom might remind you about your actual responsibilities?" My stomach twisted sharply, humiliation seeping into my bones, but I pushed back firmly. I wasn't afraid, I just didn't feel the need to brag. Marcus laughed outright, leaning back in his chair. "Of course not, because your little projects aren't worth bragging about." Mom raised her hand slightly as if to gently reprimand him, but her eyes remained cold, silently approving his cruelty. "Marcus," she chided lightly, "Kayla is just sensitive." Sensitive. The words sliced deep, pulling me back to every quiet insult I'd endured over the years, every carefully dismissed achievement, every casual mockery. "Mom," I spoke sharply, surprising even myself, "I'm not sensitive. I'm just tired of you all pretending my success isn't real because it doesn't fit your mold." A heavy silence fell over the table. Marcus's confident smirk wavered momentarily, clearly not expecting such direct defiance. Jenna glanced nervously toward Mom, her expression uncertain. Mom's eyes narrowed slightly, clearly irritated by my sudden strength. Kayla, she said slowly, each word dripping disdain, you're becoming very ungrateful, especially considering Grandpa's generosity. I stared at her, stunned by her nerve. Ungrateful? My voice shook slightly with rage. Grandpa left me that inheritance because he actually valued me, something none of you have ever done. She leaned forward, voice dangerously low. Your grandfather wasn't thinking clearly at the end. Deep down you know Marcus and Jenna deserve it more. Pain shot through my chest, anger boiling fiercely beneath it. No, I said firmly, voice trembling with conviction. They've already gotten plenty. This was mine. Grandpa saw me clearly, even if none of you ever did. Marcus shook his head, feigning sadness. Kayla, you're embarrassing yourself. You're not equipped to handle what Grandpa built, it's obvious. Jenna nodded, eyes narrowed with spiteful enjoyment. Honestly, Kayla, it's embarrassing you even believe you deserve it. The room seemed to shrink, their cruel words pressing in from all sides. I felt exposed, vulnerable, like a child again, trapped by their collective disdain. Yet beneath the pain something else burned stronger, determination. Grandpa's face flashed in my mind, gentle yet resolute, silently urging me forward. I knew in that moment, beneath the crushing humiliation, that I wouldn't back down. Not again. Lifting my chin slightly, I faced them head-on, eyes blazing with newfound strength. You can mock me all you want, but Grandpa saw something real, something none of you will ever understand, and no matter how much you try to tear me down, it doesn't change the truth. I earned this. The silence afterward was deafening, heavy with shock and anger. But for the first time in my life, their scorn bounced off me, powerless. Because this time, I refused to let them define my worth. The room had become suffocating. The sharp stares, Marcus's mocking smirk, Jenna's tightly pursed lips, everything pressed against me, hard and relentless. But Mom had saved her sharpest blow for last, something calculated to shatter me completely. She cleared her throat delicately, gathering everyone's attention. The family table hushed immediately, every eye fixed on her. Kayla, she began, her voice icy, polished, and ruthless. Since you're so determined to keep Grandpa's inheritance for yourself, perhaps it's finally time we address the elephant in the room. My heart slammed against my ribcage, knowing instinctively this would be brutal. You've always been a bit different, Mom continued, emphasizing the word with a cruel softness. And we've tried so hard to support your little dreams, but clearly we were mistaken to let you think you could ever be a meaningful part of this family. I froze, her words seeping coldly into my bones. What are you saying? Marcus leaned forward, smirking openly now. What she's saying, Kayla, is that maybe it's time we officially cut ties. You're obviously happier in your own fantasy world. My stomach plummeted. This wasn't just humiliation, it was complete rejection, delivered publicly to ensure maximum pain. Jenna sighed theatrically. It's nothing personal, Kayla, but honestly, you're just exhausting. Always needing validation. Maybe it's best we stop pretending. Every word stabbed deeper, reopening old wounds. My breath caught painfully, panic rising as the reality sank in. They weren't just shaming me, they were disowning me, publicly and permanently. Mom's eyes glittered coldly. Think of it as freedom. You can finally live your little artistic dreams without worrying about disappointing us. Of course, the inheritance complicates things, but we'll handle that legally, I assure you. My throat burned, anger finally breaking through. Grandpa made his decision clearly, Mom. You can't just rewrite it because you don't agree. Marcus laughed harshly. Kayla, be reasonable. Even Grandpa wouldn't trust you with the family legacy. You're a hobbyist, not a businesswoman. I stood abruptly, heart racing, feeling trapped like prey cornered by predators. Tears stung behind my eyes, humiliation mixing with a sudden fury. You don't get to erase Grandpa's choice just because you don't like it, I snapped, voice shaking. He saw exactly who I was, and he chose me. Mom rose slowly, commanding attention effortlessly. He was old, Kayla. Sentimental. Clearly misguided by guilt over your failures. Frankly, it's embarrassing. Her words twisted painfully, but deeper, beneath that old familiar hurt, something else ignited, a fierce determination that surged hot through my veins. You're wrong, I said softly, voice trembling with conviction, and I won't let you belittle him or me, just because you don't understand. Jenna shook her head, feigning sadness. Face it, Kayla, you don't belong here anymore. Maybe you never did. Those final words struck hardest, reverberating sharply. Never belonged. The truth, raw and brutal, echoed in my ears. They'd always made me feel this way, subtly pushing me out, bit by bit. But tonight, they'd finally said it aloud, forcing me out entirely. You know what? My voice steadied, finally clear, the words surging forward in a rush. Maybe I don't belong. Maybe I never did. But Grandpa knew me. Really knew me. And that's worth more than any acceptance you've ever given me. Mom's face flushed darkly, furious at my defiance. Kayla, think carefully. If you leave tonight, you're no longer welcome. Anywhere. Ever again. The ultimatum hung heavy, painfully clear. My chest tightened. This was my breaking point. A lifetime of subtle cruelty crystallized into a single unbearable moment. Yet even as panic threatened, Grandpa's words echoed clearly in my mind. Be brave, Kayla. Your strength comes from standing up, even when you're afraid. I met Mom's eyes evenly, my voice shaking but strong. Then consider me gone, because I'd rather be alone than constantly feel worthless. With that I turned, ignoring Marcus's shocked expression, Jenna's slack jaw, Mom's blistering anger. Walking to the door, each step felt surreal, the air charged with disbelief. But beneath it, something else stirred. A whisper of empowerment, quiet yet growing stronger. They had finally stripped away the last fragile thread binding me to their toxic circle, and strangely, despite the raw pain, I felt a deep, unexpected relief. Stepping outside, breathing fresh night air, I realized clearly, they hadn't destroyed me. Instead, they'd set me free. But what I didn't yet know, as I stood trembling in that driveway, was how quickly fate would intervene and change absolutely everything. The night air felt sharp on my face, cooling my burning cheeks as I stood alone in the driveway, shaking. Behind me, the muffled sound of voices buzzed angrily, punctuated by Mom's commanding tones. I knew they were already strategizing, working out how to rewrite Grandpa's final wish, how to erase me completely. My hands trembled violently as I dug through my purse, desperate to find my keys and escape. Tears blurred my vision, part rage, part pain, making everything seem surreal, distorted. Just as my fingers brushed the cold metal, my phone vibrated sharply. A quick glance showed an unknown number. I almost ignored it. My head was pounding, emotions overwhelming, but something urged me to pick up. Hello? My voice was raw, unsteady. Kayla Hart? A crisp, professional voice asked. This is Amanda Collins from the Sanford Creative Group. Sorry for the late call. Do you have a moment? My heart skipped, breath catching sharply. Yes, of course, I stammered, suddenly alert. Sanford Creative was a massive agency known for representing top talent. I'd admired their work from afar, but never imagined they knew I existed. Amanda cleared her throat lightly, voice warm with confidence. Your recent branding campaign caught our attention. Exceptional work. We have an urgent new client, a major international company, and they specifically requested you. My pulse hammered, disbelief clouding my brain. Me? She chuckled softly. Yes, you. They loved your fresh vision. We want to represent you exclusively for the project, and beyond if you're interested, but we'll need your confirmation immediately. Stunned silence filled my head. Here I stood, fresh from the worst humiliation of my life, disowned by my own family, and now one of the industry's biggest players was offering me the opportunity of a lifetime. Kayla? Amanda prompted gently. Yes, I blurted quickly, nearly shouting in excitement. Absolutely. I'm honored, thank you. She laughed warmly. Wonderful. We'll meet tomorrow to finalize everything. Congratulations, Kayla, you deserve this. Her words, so casually affirming, felt astonishingly powerful. You deserve this. Those 3 words clashed sharply with Mom's bitter accusations still ringing in my ears. Ending the call, I stood in stunned silence, the surreal contrast almost too much to process. The humiliation and rejection I'd just endured suddenly felt distant. Less important somehow. Then, from behind, footsteps approached briskly. Mom, Marcus, Jenna emerging onto the porch, ready to twist the knife even deeper. Kayla, Mom snapped coldly, we need to discuss this rationally. But the storm inside me had already shifted. They had no idea the tide had turned completely. Actually, I said softly, turning to face them with newfound confidence, we don't need to discuss anything. I'm done letting you all define my value. Marcus scoffed mockingly. Really? And what exactly makes you think you can manage Grandpa's legacy better than us? I met his eyes evenly, my voice steady, finally empowered. Because unlike you, I actually earned the opportunities coming my way. And as for Grandpa's legacy, he trusted me. I'm not going to betray that. Mom laughed bitterly, dismissive as always. Kayla, please. I interrupted her sharply, something I'd never dared before. No. You've said enough. She stared, momentarily shocked, silent by my boldness. I just received a call, I said clearly, savoring their stunned confusion. An international firm chose me for a major project. Sanford Creative is representing me, exclusively. Jenna's mouth fell open slightly, her face turning pale. Marcus's arrogance wavered visibly. Mom's eyes narrowed coldly. You're lying. Stop embarrassing yourself. Calmly, I showed her the phone, the call log clearly visible. The disbelief that swept across their faces felt deeply satisfying, like a balm for years of quiet pain. Mom opened her mouth to speak, then snapped it shut, speechless for the first time in memory. You underestimated me, I continued softly, firmly. Grandpa never did. He knew exactly what I was capable of, even when I didn't. Without another word, I turned toward my car, the cool night air now comforting, energizing. Behind me, silence filled the driveway, broken only by Mom's stunned whisper and Marcus's baffled confusion. As I climbed into the driver's seat, heart pounding with triumph, one thought filled me completely. Grandpa had always seen who I truly was. And now, finally, so did I. Driving away from my family's house that night felt like breaking through chains I hadn't fully realized bound me. The streets blurred past, streetlights glowing softly, guiding me somewhere new. My heart still raced with lingering adrenaline, disbelief mingling with a rush of powerful relief. In my rearview mirror, I saw the familiar house shrink behind me, lights gleaming coldly, an image of a life I was leaving behind forever. Strangely, I felt no sadness, only a fierce, glowing sense of victory. My phone buzzed constantly, texts pouring in from Mom, Marcus, Jenna, anger, demands, then subtle threats. But now their words felt distant, weak, like echoes from a life that wasn't mine anymore. I pulled over briefly, decisively turning off notifications. Silence filled the car, peaceful, liberating. Arriving home, my tiny apartment suddenly felt bigger, warmer, safe. For the first time, I felt entirely comfortable within these modest walls. The quiet hum of my fridge, the familiar creak of the hardwood floor. They'd always represented failure before. Now they symbolized freedom. I sank onto my couch, my phone still clutched in my hand. Sanford Creative had chosen me, Grandpa had chosen me. Tonight, finally, I'd chosen myself. But of course, peace rarely lasts. Early the next morning, Mom arrived unannounced. Her sharp knock rattled me awake. Groggy, I stumbled to the door, stomach instantly knotting with dread. She stood there, immaculate and cold, her eyes dark with carefully controlled fury. Kayla, we need to talk, now. Stepping aside, I allowed her in, yet surprisingly her presence no longer filled me with fear. Instead, a strange calm settled over me. This confrontation felt inevitable, necessary. She stood rigidly in my tiny living room, assessing my simple decor with barely concealed disdain. You realize what you're doing, don't you? She snapped finally. Alienating your own family, destroying your future for what? A childish rebellion? Her voice dripped contempt, a familiar weapon, but today it glanced off harmlessly. No, Mom, I answered quietly. It's not rebellion, it's respect. Grandpa respected me enough to see my value clearly, and I finally do too. She scoffed bitterly. Kayla, be realistic. You've always lived in your own little fantasy world, drawing pretty pictures pretending it means something. It doesn't. My chest tightened sharply, yet I held steady, eyes meeting hers directly. Actually, it does, because those pretty pictures landed me a major international project. Sanford Creative believes in me, and so did Grandpa. Your disbelief doesn't erase that. Mom's eyes narrowed coldly, lips pressing into a thin line. They'll regret that choice, and when they do, you'll have nothing left. Her words felt desperate now, the venom less potent. I shook my head softly, feeling powerful in my calmness. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but either way, it's my choice, my success. For the first time, something flickered briefly across her face. Uncertainty. She hadn't expected this calm, this strength. It rattled her visibly. You really think you can handle Grandpa's legacy alone? She demanded sharply, trying one last tactic. You think he'd be proud of you abandoning your family? I took a steadying breath, Grandpa's face vividly clear in my mind. Gentle, wise, unshakable. I think Grandpa would be proud I finally stood up for myself, proud I finally stopped letting you control me. Mom stared, stunned silence stretching between us. Finally her eyes narrowed bitterly. Fine, have it your way, but remember, you're choosing to be completely alone. She turned sharply, storming out, the door slamming with finality behind her. I stood in the sudden silence, heart pounding, breathing deeply, stunned by my newfound courage. It was true. I'd lost them. But the painful realization was also deeply freeing. Mom had tried everything: threats, manipulation, cruelty. Yet I stood firm, feeling stronger than I ever had. Walking slowly to the window, sunlight poured warmly through the glass, bathing everything in a comforting glow. Outside, life carried on, indifferent to family dramas. And suddenly, clearly, I saw my new path. Grandpa hadn't just given me money, he'd given me validation, strength, dignity. And now I understood exactly how to honor his legacy. I would build something meaningful, beautiful, entirely my own, never again hidden or diminished by others' expectations. And I would do it openly, proudly, knowing clearly who stood by me, and who had chosen their place far behind. The world had shifted irrevocably. My family's hypocrisy, their cruelty, had failed completely. Because I had finally rejected their lies, and stepped bravely into the truth. In the weeks after I walked away from my family, something incredible happened. I discovered I wasn't as alone as Mom had predicted. Instead, I found something even better, a family that truly chose me. I met Amanda from Sanford Creative at a sunny cafe downtown, nerves fluttering fiercely in my stomach. But her welcoming smile and genuine warmth instantly eased my anxiety. We chatted easily about the new project, my ideas, her excitement, the potential opportunities unfolding ahead. I saw something special in your work immediately, Amanda told me, her voice calm, supportive, effortlessly reassuring. You have real talent, Kayla. Your vision matters. Don't ever doubt that. Those words resonated deeply, powerful in their simplicity. Someone believed in me openly, without conditions or judgment. It felt like sunlight after a lifetime of clouds. Amanda introduced me to the rest of the team, designers, marketers, creatives who welcomed me warmly, offering genuine praise, curious about my story. I shared hesitantly at first, unused to openness. But their understanding, their genuine empathy, felt healing in a way I'd never experienced. It sounds like you broke free just in time, Sarah, a senior designer, said softly after hearing my story. Her gentle words sparked gratitude deeper than I could express. I wasn't being judged, I was being seen. Slowly, my quiet victories accumulated. The project took off brilliantly, the client ecstatic. Every small success felt magnified by the warmth of genuine support. For the first time, my professional skills weren't questioned, but celebrated, nurtured. It felt extraordinary, intoxicatingly new. But more importantly, the personal bonds formed effortlessly. Casual dinners after work, weekend hikes, simple conversations about hopes, fears, dreams, things I'd never dared share openly with my own family. These new friends saw me entirely, flaws and strengths equally valued. It was liberating, thrilling, and deeply comforting. Still, part of me wondered if this happiness would last. Years of rejection had taught me caution. But each passing day, their consistency chipped away my doubts. Slowly I learned to trust again, to trust myself and others. Then, one evening after a long, rewarding day at the office, Amanda invited me to her home for dinner. The cozy kitchen was filled with laughter, the smell of warm bread, a comforting intimacy that I'd never experienced with my own family. Her husband, Jason, and their kids instantly welcomed me, effortlessly making me feel part of their world. Over dessert, Amanda raised her glass warmly. To Kayla, brave enough to choose herself, and strong enough to let us choose her too. Warmth rushed through me as everyone clinked glasses, smiling brightly. It felt overwhelming, beautiful, real, like finding home unexpectedly. Later, sitting quietly on Amanda's porch, sipping tea beneath the stars, she turned to me gently. Kayla, your journey resonates deeply. You've overcome so much, stayed true to yourself. That's rare, powerful. I sighed softly, feeling deeply grateful. Honestly, Amanda, I didn't know I had it in me until Grandpa showed me. Without him, without you all, I wouldn't be here. She smiled gently. Sometimes family isn't blood, it's choice, and we've all chosen you. Tears filled my eyes, gratitude overflowing, stronger than anything I'd felt before. Thank you, I whispered, voice trembling softly. I didn't realize how badly I needed to hear that. In the quiet of that evening, surrounded by genuine kindness, I saw clearly what family could be. Unconditional, supportive, truly loving. My biological family's cruelty, their calculated rejection faded gently, replaced by something far richer, infinitely stronger. Back home later, reflecting on the night's warmth, a new clarity settled gently inside me. Grandpa had known all along what family should mean. He'd quietly modeled it: steadfast support, unwavering trust, love without manipulation. Finally, I'd found that genuine family for myself. Not through obligation or blood, but through openness, honesty, and choice. And in that choice, everything changed. My scars faded softly into quiet strength, wounds healing gently beneath acceptance. This new life wasn't about revenge or proving anything to anyone. It was simply about choosing love, respect, and dignity for myself and those who truly valued me. After the dust settled, and the initial rush of newfound support softened into comfortable normalcy, I knew it was time to set clear, firm boundaries around the life I'd built. As much as I wished otherwise, my family hadn't given up quietly. Marcus sent occasional emails, thinly disguised as polite requests to reconsider my decision about the inheritance. Jenna texted sporadically, hints of fake concern layered beneath her sharp, manipulative tone. And Mom still believed she could regain control, no matter how firmly I'd pushed her away. One afternoon, while I was focused deeply on a design at my desk, my phone lit up insistently. Mom, the simple sight of her name set my pulse racing, old anxiety flaring immediately. But something had changed. This time, instead of dread, determination hardened inside me. Kayla, Mom's voice was crisp, formal, always businesslike when she was losing control. This has gone on long enough. You've made your point. Let's handle the inheritance responsibly now. I paused, carefully steadying my breath, holding tight to the calm strength I'd worked hard to build. Mom, I've already handled it responsibly, exactly as Grandpa intended. She sighed sharply, clearly irritated. Kayla, be reasonable. Marcus is prepared to manage everything properly. It's best for everyone. Something firm clicked into place inside me. My voice emerged quietly steady, unwavering. Best for you, maybe, but not for me, and definitely not what Grandpa wanted. She inhaled sharply, struggling for control. Kayla, don't make this harder than necessary. I'm not, I replied calmly. In fact, I'm making it easy. My decision is final. No discussion. Silence stretched, tense and heavy. Finally she spoke, voice dangerously soft. Kayla, choices have consequences. You're isolating yourself completely. Don't expect us to be there when this inevitably fails. I smiled softly, feeling unexpectedly peaceful. That's fine, Mom, because the people who matter are already here, and they believe in me. The line went silent abruptly. She'd hung up, furious at my calm defiance. But I felt no regret, no fear. Instead, a profound relief flooded me, powerful and freeing. Over the next few weeks I drew clearer boundaries, blocking Mom, Marcus, and Jenna from most of my contacts. It felt harsh initially, but gradually, the quiet became comforting, healing. My new family supported me unwaveringly, affirming my decisions openly. Amanda offered guidance, her strength contagious. Sarah and the others rallied warmly, reminding me daily of my worth. Their genuine care soothed old hurts, turning once sharp memories into softer, gentler scars. Then came another surprise. Marcus reached out directly, visiting my apartment unexpectedly. He stood awkwardly at my door, looking unusually humble, hesitant. Kayla, he started uncomfortably, voice quiet. Can we talk? I paused, heart tightening slightly. Cautiously, I invited him inside. Marcus glanced around my simple space awkwardly, discomfort evident. Look, Kayla, he began softly, avoiding my eyes. I didn't handle things well. I regret some of what I said. Only some, I noted silently, but stayed quiet, letting him continue. Mom's relentless. Her pressure's intense, I get that now, but maybe we can still work this out, as siblings? His words hovered cautiously between sincerity and manipulation. Once, I might have softened instantly, eager for acceptance, but now, clarity felt powerful. Marcus, I said gently, firmly, I appreciate this, but it's too late. You stood by and watched Mom tear me apart. You joined in. His expression faltered, clearly startled by my strength. Kayla, I was wrong. I realize that now. Quietly, steadily, I met his gaze. Then show it. Respect my choice and walk away. Let me live my life. He stood silently, considering deeply. Finally, he nodded slowly, resignation evident. I guess you're stronger than I realized. Watching him leave quietly felt bittersweet but necessary. I'd drawn a firm boundary, protecting the peace I'd fought hard to build. Later, Amanda listened gently as I shared the encounter. She squeezed my shoulder warmly, smiling proudly. You stood firm, Kayla. You chose yourself, fully, unapologetically. That night, reflecting quietly in bed, gratitude filled me deeply. I'd faced consequences bravely, defining my boundaries clearly, finding peace beyond revenge or validation. Grandpa had trusted me completely, and finally, I understood why. He knew I'd find strength hidden beneath quiet struggle, dignity inside painful rejection. The fortress I'd built wasn't about exclusion, it was about protection, respect, and self-love. And I realized clearly, peacefully, how far I'd grown. Because finally, fully, I belonged to myself. And that was more powerful than anything they could ever take away. With clear boundaries established, my focus shifted naturally toward honoring Grandpa's legacy, not by clinging to his money out of spite, but by building something meaningful, something genuinely mine. It began with simple, careful steps. I decided to establish a foundation supporting young artists, designers, and dreamers who felt unseen, people like I once was, quietly working toward their dreams, needing just a bit of encouragement. Launching this initiative felt both exhilarating and daunting, deeply personal, yet incredibly fulfilling. I poured myself into creating mentorship opportunities, financial grants, and creative workshops, resources I wished I'd had during those lonely years when my family refused to see my worth. The foundation quickly took shape, capturing attention far beyond my expectations. Amanda and my new friends eagerly volunteered support, their enthusiasm contagious. Together, we organized an event celebrating our first round of recipients, a diverse, inspiring group whose talents and determination left me speechless. At the event, standing nervously behind the podium, I saw Grandpa vividly in my mind, smiling quietly, nodding with pride. I took a breath, steadied by his memory, and began speaking clearly, openly sharing my story for the first time publicly. My grandfather taught me something invaluable, I said softly, emotion thickening my voice. He taught me that dignity doesn't come from money or status. It comes from believing in yourself, even when nobody else does. Tonight, we celebrate artists who embody exactly that spirit. Applause erupted warmly, filling the room, but my gaze locked briefly on a familiar face near the back. Marcus, standing quietly, expression unreadable. Surprise flickered briefly, then acceptance. I'd built something undeniable, and even he couldn't help but see it clearly now. Later, Marcus approached cautiously, respect clear in his posture. Kayla, he began softly, genuinely humble this time. Grandpa would be incredibly proud of you. I nodded gently, emotions swirling. I know, and honestly, that's all I've ever truly wanted. He smiled faintly, thoughtful. Maybe Mom never saw your strength clearly, but I do now, and Kayla, I was wrong, I'm sorry. Those quiet words felt healing, powerful, unexpected yet incredibly meaningful. Thank you, Marcus, I whispered, voice trembling slightly. That means more than you know. The evening ended beautifully, laughter and inspiration filling the air. Returning home, I felt energized, deeply satisfied. Grandpa's inheritance had transformed from a battlefield into a beacon of hope, a legacy honoring not just him but the truth of who I'd become. Weeks passed, momentum building beautifully. More sponsors signed on, more talented individuals applied. My once hidden success blossomed openly, warmly embraced by those who truly understood its value. Then came one final, unexpected encounter. Mom appeared quietly at the foundation office one afternoon, no longer sharp or aggressive but softer, cautious. Kayla, she began hesitantly, voice unusually gentle. May I speak with you? Surprised yet composed, I nodded, inviting her in. She sat carefully, uncomfortable yet determined. I've been watching your foundation quietly, it's impressive. You've done well. Her words, simple yet profound, stunned me. For once, she wasn't cold or dismissive, just honest, vulnerable. I never understood your choices, she admitted softly, her gaze distant, conflicted. Maybe because I never gave myself permission to pursue dreams, but Kayla, I see now clearly that you've built something extraordinary. Emotion thickened her voice, and a tear slid down her cheek, an image I'd never imagined possible. She continued quietly, sincerely, your grandfather was right to trust you, you've honored him beautifully, and I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. My heart filled, deep gratitude mingling gently with old wounds healing slowly. Thank you, Mom, I replied softly, voice trembling. I appreciate you saying that. She stood slowly, smiling faintly, warmth finally reaching her eyes. Maybe someday you'll forgive me entirely, but for now I'm proud of you, Kayla, truly proud. Watching her leave, something deep inside me released, a final thread of lingering pain, quietly dissolving into gentle peace. Grandpa's legacy had brought not just success or revenge but genuine understanding and growth. I had reclaimed his legacy completely, not through bitterness or pride, but through meaningful, heartfelt impact. My inheritance was no longer just money, it was dignity, strength, and finally true respect. And in honoring Grandpa this way, I'd also honored myself, fully, completely on my own terms. Sitting quietly in my office late one evening, surrounded by sketches, designs, and photos of smiling artists whose dreams I'd helped nurture, a gentle peace settled deeply inside me. I leaned back, sipping warm tea, reflecting gently on how far I'd come. I'd once believed Grandpa's inheritance was simply money, a resource to defend or a burden to fight for. But now I saw clearly that his gift was far deeper. Trust, recognition, validation. Grandpa hadn't just left me wealth. He'd shown me my own worth, something no one else had ever truly done. That realization shifted everything inside me. I'd spent years desperately chasing validation from my family, hoping they'd eventually see me clearly. But true peace, I realized, didn't come from their approval. It came from finally accepting myself exactly as I was. Quietly, warmly, I smiled, understanding fully for the first time that I no longer needed their acceptance to define me. Instead, I'd built a life of genuine meaning filled with purpose, creativity, and kindness. My chosen family, Amanda, Sarah, the friends who embraced me openly, had become anchors of strength, their loyalty unwavering. I'd transformed Grandpa's inheritance into a lasting legacy, helping others break free from invisibility and find their voices. And perhaps most importantly, I'd finally forgiven my family. Not because their cruelty was justified, but because releasing resentment freed me completely. Letting go didn't erase their wrongs, it just meant I refused to carry their pain any longer. The phone vibrated softly, a message from Amanda popping warmly onto the screen. "Proud of you, Kayla. Always." Simple, genuine support. I smiled gently, gratitude filling me quietly. I'd learned clearly that validation wasn't dramatic, it was steady, quiet, and deeply comforting. Looking around, I knew deeply that Grandpa would have loved this life I'd created, filled with honesty, dignity, and quiet strength. He'd understood my potential long before I saw it clearly. Now, finally, I'd caught up. Rising slowly, I walked to the window, gazing thoughtfully at the quiet city below. Lights flickered warmly, lives unfolding gently, stories unknown yet meaningful. It felt profoundly comforting, realizing my story was one among many, each valuable, beautiful, worthy. Peace flowed gently through me, strong and calming. My inheritance hadn't just given me money or security, it had given me something far richer: self-acceptance, dignity, and quiet, unshakable strength. I took a deep breath, smiling softly at my reflection in the glass. Finally, fully I'd found myself, and discovered that being enough for myself was more powerful than anything anyone else could offer. I whispered gently into the silence, "Thank you, Grandpa, for seeing me clearly, long before I could." Standing quietly, savoring this newfound peace, I understood clearly that my journey wasn't just about overcoming hardship, it was about claiming my true worth, unapologetically and bravely. And maybe, just maybe, my story could help others do the same. Before I close, let me ask you something important. Have you ever felt unseen by your family, struggled to find your voice, or faced judgment for pursuing your dreams? If my journey resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that it's okay, more than okay, to define success on their own terms. Because true peace comes not from what others say you are, but from embracing fully who you know yourself to be. And trust me, that realization is worth everything.